Ram, X Cargo 637 Heavy at F37, request pushback. Cleared for pushback X Cargo 637 Heavy. Ram, X Cargo 793 Heavy at F31, request pushback. Cleared for pushback X Cargo 793 Heavy. Tower, Unity 125 Heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Unity 125 Heavy. Ground, X Cargo 637 Heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad X Cargo 637 Heavy. Ran, Sunrise 761 at North Parking 9, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Sunrise 761. Tower, Luctor 982 Heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Luctor 982 Heavy. Ground, X Cargo 793 Heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad X Cargo 793 Heavy. Ram, D Cargo 275 Heavy at U9, request pushback. Cleared for pushback D Cargo 275 Heavy. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Unity 125 Heavy. Tower, Locus 784 Heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Locus 784 Heavy. Ground, Sunrise 761 ready for taxi. Ram, Sperry 555 at B40, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Sperry 555. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Lugter 982 Heavy. Tower, up 255 Heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Tower, Helicopter D Cargo 359 inbound JFK. Helicopter D Cargo 359 cleared to land on helipad. Cleared to land runway 22 left, up 255 Heavy. Ground, D Cargo 275 Heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad D Cargo 275 Heavy. Ram, X Cargo 778 at F11, request pushback. Cleared for pushback X Cargo 778. Ground, X Cargo 637 Heavy at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey X Cargo 637 Heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad Sunrise 761. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Locus 784 Heavy. Ground, Sperry 555 ready for taxi. Hold position, X cargo 637 heavy. Continue taxi, X cargo 637 heavy. Tower, X cargo 421 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, X cargo 421. Ran, Israel 205 heavy at B54, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Israel 205 heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad Sperry 555. Ground, X cargo 778 ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad X cargo 778. Ran, Ribby 272 at North Parking 5, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Ribby 272. Continue taxi, up 255 heavy. Tower, Blue 500 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Blue 500. Ran, Ribby 76 at North Parking 4, request pushback. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, X cargo 421. Continue taxi, up 255 heavy. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, X cargo 637 heavy. Tower, Canada 355 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Canada 355. Ground, Ribby 272 ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad Ribby 272. Ground, X cargo 793 heavy at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Cleared for pushback Ribby 76. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey X cargo 793 heavy. Ran, X cargo 23 at F1, request pushback. Ground, Israel 205 Heavy ready for taxi. Contacting departure, X-Cargo 637 Heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad Israel 205 Heavy. Ground, D-Cargo 275 Heavy at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Continue taxi, up 255 Heavy. Taxi to runway 22 right D-Cargo 275 Heavy. Cross runway and taxi to parking, up 255 Heavy. Hold position, Rivy 272. Continue taxi, Rivy 272. Taxi to NP7, helicopter D-Cargo 359. Tower, America 527 inbound for runway 22 left. RAN, up 192 heavy at U7, request pushback. Cleared for pushback up 192 heavy. Cleared for pushback X-Cargo 23. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Blue 500. Ground, Rivy 76 ready for taxi. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right, D-Cargo 275 heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad Rivy 76. Cross runway 4 left and taxi to parking, up 255 heavy. Toronto 874 at B51, request pushback. Ground, X-Cargo 23 ready for taxi. Cleared to land runway 22 left, America 527. Ground, Sperry 555 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Tower, up 780 heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Contacting departure, D-Cargo 275 heavy. Cleared to land runway 22 left, up 780 heavy. Cleared for pushback Toronto 874. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey Sperry 555. Taxi to de-icing pad X-Cargo 23. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Canada 355. RAN, D-Cargo 921 heavy of UA, request pushback. Line up and wait runway 22 right of Whiskey, X-Cargo 793 heavy. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, America 527. Ground, Toronto 874 ready for taxi. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, X-Cargo 793 heavy. Ground, X-Cargo 778 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad Toronto 874. Ground, up 192 heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey X-Cargo 778. Tower, Blue 685 inbound for runway 22 left. Taxi to de-icing pad up 192 heavy. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Blue 685. Up 703 of U1, request pushback. Contacting departure, X-Cargo 793 heavy. Ground, Sunrise 761 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Cleared for pushback up 703. Cleared for pushback D-Cargo 921 heavy. Taxi to runway 22 right Sunrise 761. Continue taxi, up 780 heavy. Ground, helicopter D-Cargo 359 at North Parking 7, ready for taxi. Tower, Scandi 259 heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Taxi to helipad helicopter D-Cargo 359. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Scandi 259 heavy. Ram, Fronty 111 at B62, request pushback. Ground, Israel 205 heavy at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Cleared for pushback Fronty 111. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey Israel 205 heavy. Continue taxi, up 780 heavy. Cleared for takeoff from helipad, helicopter D-Cargo 359. Contacting departure, helicopter D-Cargo 359. Ground, up 703 ready for taxi. Ground, D-Cargo 921 heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to de-icing pad up 703. Ram, mission critical 805 at North Parking 2, request pushback. Cleared for pushback mission critical 805. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Blue 685. Tower, Sunrise 760 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Sunrise 760. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, Sperry 555. Continue taxi, up 780 heavy. Cross runway and taxi to parking, up 780 heavy. Line up and wait runway 22 right at Whiskey, X cargo 778. Ran, you next 257 at 822, request pushback. Ground, Bronte 111 ready for taxi. Contacting departure, Sperry 555. Taxi to de-icing pad Bronte 111. Cleared for pushback you next 257. Tower, Champagne 142 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Champagne 142. Ground, mission critical 805 ready for taxi. Ground, Rivy 272 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Scandi 259 heavy. Ran, Canada 562 at A14, request pushback. Hold position, Scandi 259 heavy. Cleared for pushback Canada 562. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, X cargo 778. Line up and wait runway 22 right, Sunrise 761. Ground, X cargo 23 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to holding point X cargo 23. Continue taxi, Scandi 259 heavy. Ground, Toronto 874 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Contacting departure, X cargo 778. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey Toronto 874. Ground, you next 257 ready for taxi. Tower, America 298 inbound for runway 22 left. Tower, helicopter mission critical 370 inbound JFK. Taxi to de-icing pad you next 257. Ran, Blue 855 at A17, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Blue 855. Continue taxi, Sunrise 760. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right, Sunrise 761. Cross runway 4 left and taxi to parking, up 780 heavy. Helicopter mission critical 370 cleared to land on helipad. Cleared to land runway 22 left, America 298. Line up and wait runway 22 right at Whiskey, Israel 205 heavy. Ground, Canada 562 ready for taxi. Contacting departure, Sunrise 761. Taxi to de-icing pad Canada 562. Taxi to runway 22 right, Rivi 272. Tower, X cargo 630 heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, X cargo 630 heavy. Continue taxi, sunrise 760. Taxi to de-icing pad D cargo 921 heavy. Ran, Havasha 441 at North Parking 1, request pushback. Hold position, D cargo 921 heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad mission critical 805. Cleared for pushback Havasha 441. Cross runway and taxi to parking, Sunrise 760. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Champagne 142. Ground, Blue 855 ready for taxi. Ran, Cat I-610 heavy at B63, request pushback. Taxi to de-icing pad Blue 855. Cleared for pushback Cat I-610 heavy. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, Israel 205 heavy. Line up and wave runway 22 right, Rivi 272. Tower, Blue 152 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Blue 152. Contacting departure, Israel 205 heavy. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, America 298. Ran, X cargo 535 heavy at F5, request pushback. Cleared for pushback X cargo 535 heavy. Ground, Fronty 111 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey Fronty 111. Ground, Havasha 441 ready for taxi. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, X cargo 630 heavy. Ground, Cat I-610 heavy ready for taxi. Taxi to holding point Cat I-610 heavy. Tower, America 455 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, America 455. Ran, Alaskan 241 at A30, request pushback. Hold position, Fronty 111. Hold position, X cargo 630 heavy. Continue taxi, X cargo 630 heavy. Continue taxi, Fronty 111. Cleared for pushback Alaskan 241. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right, Rivi 272. Cross runway 4 left and taxi to parking, Sunrise 760. Hold position, helicopter mission critical 370. Line up and wait runway 22 right at Whiskey, Toronto 874. Ground, you next 257 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey, you next 257. Contacting departure, Rivi 272. Ground, Rivi 76 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Ran, Sunrise 435 at North Parking A, request pushback. Taxi to runway 22 right, Rivi 76. Helicopter mission critical 370 cleared to land on helipad. Tower, X cargo 275 heavy inbound for runway 22 left. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, Blue 152. Grand, Super Tug 855 at B66, request pushback. Ground, X cargo 535 heavy ready for taxi. Cleared to land runway 22 left, X cargo 275 heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad, X cargo 535 heavy. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, Toronto 874. Taxi to NP7, helicopter mission critical 370. Taxi to de-icing pad Havasha 441. Ground, Alaskan 241 ready for taxi. Ground, Canada 562 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Contacting departure, Toronto 874. Taxi to de-icing pad Alaskan 241. Taxi to runway 22 right at Whiskey Canada 562. Ran, Allegiance 248 at B60, request pushback. Cleared for pushback Super Tug 855. Hold position, Blue 152. Hold position, Alaskan 241. Continue taxi, Alaskan 241. Ground, Super Tug 855 at B66 ready for taxi. Taxi to C107 Super Tug 855. Tower, Havasha 272 inbound for runway 22 left. Continue taxi, Blue 152. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Havasha 272. Hold position, Bronte 111. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, America 455. Cleared for pushback Sunrise 435. Ran, up 254 view 3, request pushback. Cleared for pushback up 254. Cleared for pushback Allegiance 248. Continue taxi, Bronte 111. Cleared for takeoff runway 22 right at Whiskey, X cargo 23. Line up and wait runway 22 right, Rivi 76. Contacting departure, X cargo 23. Tower, Blue 371 inbound for runway 22 left. Cleared to land runway 22 left, Blue 371. RAN, Allegiance 76 of B57, request pushback. Cross runway 22 right and taxi to parking, X cargo 275 heavy. Ground, Sunrise 435 ready for taxi. Ground, up 254 ready for taxi. Ground, up 192 heavy at de-icing pad, ready for taxi. Taxi to runway 22 right up 192 heavy. Taxi to de-icing pad up 254. Ground, Allegiance 248 ready for taxi. Ground, Blue 855 at de-icing pad, ready for taxi.